It's Friday. Feedback
Friday.
Friday. The
The feedbackiest day of the week. Singing on Zoom is not good. It lags.
Your timing was totally different from
It lags.
usual.
It lags. It
Oh,
lags.
okay.
This is a problem. Mary, Justin, I do this all the time, and we have problems on Zoom. So it's Feedback Friday. Song W. Aronson, Girly Girl, is joining me because we had a comment, and I normally don't comment on two women talking because you're not here.
Mhm.
But this one you felt strongly about. So, and it is also an excuse for me to plug your coffee on the Calidus Chronicles map because you're 64% to goal as we're recording
Yes.
this. It's like under $100.
Yeah,
to
it's
go.
$90 exactly.
Yeah,
At
$90
this point.
as of this recording. So check that out, please. Let's help make goal here because it's so close. When it gets in like $100, I start wanting to chew my arm off because it's like it's so close. It's so close. Why doesn't somebody just it's 9 people chipping in $10? Like that's it. When you break it down that way, you know,
Yes.
you'll get there. But I'm just like,
Yeah, it's
know?
been quite an experience because like the first one just I had
Well,
it in like 2 or 3 days, and admittedly cycling over to a stretch goal that was the same amount, I knew it was a bit of a stretch.
Yeah.
Appropriately
but it's
named.
always uncanny valley. Anything like this, there's a big thing, and then you wait and you wait. You know that song in South Park, and you wait and you wait and you wait and you wait, and then it finally, especially when there's no time limit. But we do have a time limit on this video, so let's get to the comment. In question. This was on Tuesday's video. And I'm going to read it exactly as is because the commenter then claimed you responded in the comment and he said that's not what I wrote. So I'm going to read what he actually wrote and then we can break it down. So I'm going to read the whole thing and then we'll do it. Okay. Okay. In the experience of many guys, every woman is Shadowheart. For people who don't know, it's a character from Baldur's Gate 3. I added that, not the commenter. And you broke off before you could get somewhere interesting. Nerdy men that are in nerd spaces because it's woman free and therefore Shadowheart free, zone gatekeep that for a reason. It makes total sense if you think about it. And then I guess it's Mick feminism it's supposed to be. It's spelled Mike feminism, but I'll say Mick feminine discourse sounds a lot different, doesn't it? It's professional abusers demanding access to spaces of a whole lot of new potential victims. You already discussed how adept these women are at weaponizing feminist talking points. So I'll let you start here.
Oh, okay. So,
well, I'll read your comment. So maybe you can branch out. You said you can't say that all women are Shadowheart, not when there are 2 women here calling out the Shadowheart types. That's extremely disingenuous. He responded, that's not what I wrote there. Maybe I could phrase it better think about this dynamic from the perspective of a guy who has had lots of Shadowhearts in their life. So he amended his original statement. I know where I'm sticking a pin in what he said, but you had a very strong reaction to this, so I want you to go first.
Like I said, it's extremely disingenuous to claim that all women are Shadowheart.
Yeah. Now, in the experience of some men, it's that some all, right?
Yeah. But I mean, men don't like when feminists say that all men are predatory or all men are aggressive because it's simply not true.
I just covered this on Monday with the Duluth model stuff.
And like that's part of what it's coming back to is something you also mentioned, I think, in that same video was the fact that women do tend to be good at manipulation, which I think is part of what he was coming back to with that comment. Because again, it was the day after you did that Duluth model video. And yes, women do tend to be better at manipulation. We do have a knack for it, which in part is socialization because we have to figure out how to do things subtly. And again, it's just a trait. And it's also
a learned behavior. Yeah.
It's also something that can be used for good or used for evil. It's also something where it's like we choose whether or not to use those skills, let alone how we use them. And so to claim that it's professional abusers, like what is a professional abuser exactly?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it.
Like, am I allowed to name names here?
Yeah. If you want to do another reference other than Shah, because I mean, priestesses
Okay.
Shah are professional abusers, but yeah.
So, like, my first thought when it says professional abuser, my first thought is Zoe Quinn,
Okay, I
admittedly.
thought you were gonna go for Amber Heard, but
No,
we sort of get the idea.
no.
Um,
It's so admittedly, I do think of someone like Zoe Quinn and what she has been accused of in not even
well
just,
worded, well
yeah,
worded.
not
Okay.
not even just the whole trading sexual favors for good reviews, but the whole thing with her ex-boyfriend, who she claimed abused her and he committed suicide. Again, we
Oh,
have
Alex
no
Holoka. Yeah.
yeah, we have no idea what actually happened in that
Right.
situation, as
Right.
far as I know. We have no way to prove or disprove what she said.
Yeah.
However, if you're going from the idea, the assumption that there is some grounds to the idea that she was faking it and she drove someone to suicide. Okay, you want to call that a professional abuser? I could go with that. However, most women aren't in that situation. So professional abuser is part of what feels a bit disingenuous, because what does that even mean?
Well, my issue was the argument that you can't come into these spaces and I can't come to these spaces because of what another woman did. It's
Mm-hmm.
collective blame and it's collective punishment. And it's
Yes.
because shadow hearts are normal women, typical women, and all the other women, well, you're not really women, or you're not a normal woman. It's what's centered. It's what, I talked about how men can, misery masculinity, men can be grouchy and get away with it. Nobody likes it, but we
Mm-hmm.
tolerate it. And
Yeah.
that's why women have to be manipulative and subversive, because can't come out and say what you really mean, because I do, and we all see what happens. People are exploding on me left and right because they get really upset, even though I said
Mm-hmm.
a true thing.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there are reasons for it, but the idea that, first of all, I think it's a huge assumption to say men go to nerd spaces because there are no women. I think a lot of men will be, the hell you say? I don't think that's true.
And like here's the thing. I'm gonna jump over to a related topic, but like the
Yes.
idea of gatekeeping. I'm
Right.
not completely opposed to gatekeeping. You and I have
Right.
talked on Two Women Talking about
Yeah.
how frustrating it can be that these things we've always loved have now reached mass appeal.
Yeah.
And it's created this, I don't even know what to call it, this casual fandom where it's like
I
they only know the movies and they aren't actually invested in the characters. And it's like, it's really nice to have all this merchandise we can buy now.
yeah.
But the cost is that there are a lot of people who claim to be a fan when they aren't a fan of the same thing we're a fan of.
And I do think you can do some sort of informal gatekeeping uh without being, and okay, there's sort of a saying the quiet part out loud thing here with some areas of fandom. I think saying that it was safer, I think saying a male centered space is more
Mm-hmm.
accurate than saying a woman free space, because
Yes.
fandom was never a woman free space. There were always women. I mean,
Like,
Leia Brackett, as one of the people who took a crack at that. Well, she's the queen of space opera. There's always been women in these spaces.
here's the other thing. It's there is a difference between, again, you and I and the way we've gravitated towards male centered spaces like Star Wars and comic books,
Yeah,
but we appreciated them where they were.
right.
Now, if you want to make an argument against certain people who come in and are like, oh, well, I don't like it the way it is, so I'm going to change it to appeal more to me,
Yeah.
that's where I'm like, you know what? Some gatekeeping is okay. But if
And
you're going to say no women allowed,
Yeah, I
Dude.
admit that that is part of my issue with the Shadowheart character in general, because the Baldur's Gate franchise, historically, there were more female characters in the party, and there we had a good girl, we had a tough girl, we had way more depictions of femininity instead of the goth chicks and two monster girls. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Karlach's awesome, Lae'zel's awesome, but again, the the normative female is a manipulative evil priestess at the beginning. And
Mm-hmm.
people can say, oh, she evolves, but there's the fact that there's a reaction of, yeah, this is normal for women. That's what I got from the comment, that there's enough women like this that we have to take evasive maneuvers.
Mm-hmm.
And I started thinking about um the whole, I keep going to the Taylor Swift short shirts and t-shirts, and
Yeah.
you know um the women who are held up in nerd spaces are exactly the type of women that treat male nerds badly.
Mm-hmm.
And we have to go, why do we keep perpetuating this? You know?
It it's the same reason why romance novel heroes are so often the toxic asshole
Are they?
and the alpha hole. Yes. Oh God. So many of them I read and I'm like, God, what
Wait,
is
the
appealing
the
about this?
the Alphahole?
Yes.
What is that? Because it sounds like a really lewd breakfast cereal.
No, so the alpha
Alpha
hole.
holes, lick my candy butt. Like, what is an alpha hole?
So alpha hole is a nickname, I guess, for the characters who like they're the really strong, tough alpha male, like the Vikings or the Scottish laird or whatever is the trend now, or
Aren't they?
the
Aren't they always like? I mean, Hrothgar in Calidus Chronicles is sort of, but he's a nice guy,
well, yeah, he's not an alpha hole. He's just
right?
kind of like a positive example of an aggressive alpha male who
Right, but
like,
yeah, he's
but
not a
like,
jerk.
yeah, but he's
Yeah,
not threatening Carolyn or
right. Like,
anything.
I
No,
almost saw that
unless she
as
wants him to.
I almost saw that as a subversion of that trope.
And
And I mean, this, like, Calidus is so much, no, this is what women really want. We take what's in these books, but can
mm-hmm.
this guy be a nice guy for once,
Yes.
who just wants to take her for a ride in the woods, not to do a bodice ripping thing? Like, I found that refreshing because, yeah.
Yeah, so there, for those who haven't read it, there's a scene in Calidus where Hrothgar, one of the male love interests, he takes Carolyn on a ride outside the city. And they just ride into the hills and look over the city and stand under a tree
It's
and
a
talk
it's a
and kiss.
it's a first date. It's like normal instead of tortured. And
Yeah.
one of the defenses of Shadowheart is, okay, she's a terrible person, but it's a better story. And
It is
that's where,
absolutely I'm so sick of this.
yeah,
It is absolutely possible to write a story that's interesting without the characters being assholes. Like
the
it's one thing to give characters flaws,
yeah,
and the other example of the alpha hole right now is the 500-year-old fairy lord who falls in love with a 19-year-old human, which your
uh,
face. I'm so glad we're on video so people can see your face.
wait. 500-year-old, like Fae, like high Fae, like
Mm-hmm.
Celtic lord
Yes,
falling in love with a human.
a 19-year-old human.
I'm nauseous. Like, those lords are not intended to be knowable. They're not intended to be nice. They were kill the monsters to pave the way for humanity.
Welcome to a court of thorns and roses.
Oh God, that's this. Oh God, see this. See,
Oh, and
I
and and they're mates.
and
Like
people
it's
people think the stuff I read is messed up.
Weird. Yeah, no.
All that happens is people get disemboweled in the shit I read. This is what?
It's like, no, if I'm gonna compare Conan the Barbarian and Zenobia or even Belit with A Court of Thorns and Roses, Conan is the much healthier love story.
And that's the thing. If you go back to the earlier Baldur's Gate games, yes, there were evil characters. I mean, Viconia is a crossover character. She's a drow elf. She's evil. There are evil characters in the earlier Baldur's Gate games so that people can play as murder hobos if they want to.
Of course.
But every single character didn't have to be morally ambivalent so they can stay in the party no matter what terrible choices you make. And to me, the story of there's a character in the second game, I think her name's Aerie, and she was this race of winged elves, and she had her wings torn off, and so she was working in a circus, and she'd been adopted by this gnome illusionist, I believe, named Quail. And so they were sort of found family, and she was having to figure out how to live, not being able to fly anymore. And so she was kind of fragile and afraid of the world. And it's kind of cool because she was a mage cleric dual class. So she levels quite slowly, but you get her end game and she is badass because she can do both. And like her story of learning to find her feet, literally, and then her power scaling. And she's a good person. You could tell an interesting story without a woman being awful. And I mean, obviously, it was well told enough because this is not the type of character I tend to like, but she was just so sweet. And she was almost Alita Battle Angel before Alita Battle Angel. She has huge eyes in the portrait. But
I mean, Alita is from the 80s.
Yeah. So it was sort of similar sentiment, but you can tell an interesting story with a character who's not a disaster. And it just seems like everything is being pulled because that was clearly a trauma story still, but she's not awful.
Yeah. And you know, I think we've spent how long at this point going through this series on toxic women, toxic men, and now toxic relationships.
Right.
So to say that, you know, we stopped before going
we
into
said
anything
something interesting.
It's like, what have we been doing for the
that
last
line?
It's like what have we been doing for the past almost 2 months with this? It's like
if anybody wants to make, and that's where Leanna's brain goes. It's the Alistair from Husband Hotel. Like this is when I just smile and think murder is because you want to make me not care. Tell me I stopped before I said something interesting. Like, first of all, interesting is subjective.
Yes.
And so I understand this is just a YouTube comment and I'm doing a deep contextual read like it's freaking Shakespeare or Chaucer. I let me use my university.
But at the same time, like,
please. Yeah.
By the time I sent you the comment, you had already seen it. Like, and I knew you must have been thinking about it because your first response was, you want to record an addendum to this?
Because I was like, I didn't care. And so you felt strongly about it, and usually it's me just because of scheduling. And I thought, okay, let's give you a chance to rebut. I said, but this.
And like, here's the thing. We've had at least one person in the Discord who has made girly girls are manipulative and mean comments and just want to use you. And the fact that the phrase girly girl was used deliberately.
Well, obviously this affects you more than it affects me.
No, that hit a nerve.
Yeah.
And so, yes, it does tend to be girly girls who are a bit better at manipulation. But again, that's because of how we've been socialized. It's
the technical term for it is pro-social manipulation.
Yes.
Yeah.
It
isn't like, how are you? Instead of going, I'm fucking awful. I have cramps. I can't feel the side of my face. My hair follicles hurt and my feet hurt because of these very cute shoes. I'm great. Like that kind of thing, right? The
Yeah.
idea of beauty is pain and all that stuff. That is, I mean, we want to get into a feminine strength metaphor. It hurts to be pretty.
And there is the thing that in a lot of cases, women tend to be more aware of other people's emotions than men.
Women also scientifically proven to people please more, scientifically also proven to want to do it less, but they feel like they can't. And see,
Mm-hmm.
I'm speaking about myself like I'm not part of this group because I'm not. I'm not part of a group that does that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's because women are evolved for them that many of us are more aware of the small facial features that indicate someone's
Mhm.
emotions. We we have a better understanding of how to motivate people
But
through
it's
that, and
also
not even just motivate, but it's like we know how to use people's emotions. But again, that's an ability that can be used for good or evil. It's
and
not that.
again, we've all seen how nerd spaces react when somebody comes out and says something bluntly.
Mm-hmm.
I do think there is, if this is my take, song, tell me, because you're much, I stepped out of these spaces as soon as I can. I've been an honorary guy since grades, yeah, 6, when I started playing D&D. Yeah, so it's been a while. But if you're one of those guys who think all women are shadow hearts, that's because of who you're noticing.
Mm-hmm.
That's because of who
there
you're
there comes
centering.
a there comes a point where there's a I'm trying to think how to phrase this politely because I think it's a joke from a comedian.
She's out of your league, Peter.
No, it's not
Okay.
even that. It's I have like the perfect phrase. It just uses a word I don't want to use. So I'm
Okay.
trying to think of how to phrase it
Just say
properly.
it, knowing it's a phrase. You didn't come up with it.
If you throw out a cunty net, you'll bring back cunty fish.
Now I'm smelling that. I
Sorry.
I was pretty sure that's what it was, but yes.
So
Because the only thing, yeah. Okay. Wow. Yes. Evocative. But yeah, I mean, it is.
it's the only thing I can think of in that. It's like if all you're getting is shadow heart, maybe look at what you're putting out there.
And okay, what I find when people say every woman is this, mom was this, sister was this, the women closest to somebody, and
Mm-hmm.
the commenter did retract to lots of, but lots of is not all.
Mm-hmm.
And there is a problem in nerd spaces where they do. I mean, I've watched this. It's the Felicia Day effect. They'll stop the line for her.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't get it. To me, nothing wrong with her. She's just unremarkable and was created by Joss Whedon to strike break. She threw her other actors under the bus to do Dr. Horrible's sing along blog because it was a shot. I don't necessarily blame her. It's just a mercenary move. Like,
Mm-hmm.
imagine the latest strike. If somebody had done something like Dr. Horrible, they would have been run out of the industry for being a scab. You're
Oh
not
yeah,
supposed to be working.
I'm kind of amazed Drew Barrymore still has a show.
Barely. Yeah, like she
Yeah.
took a lot of heat for that. But that's what Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog was. But they she showed up somewhere. It's like she walked on a cloud and she went in places. And those of us that actually had an appointment and were waiting in line had to wait another 30 minutes for her rarefied ass.
But here's the thing, and that's, I think, one of the disadvantages. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems like that's actually one of the harmful parts of benevolent sexism.
Oh
where
yeah.
it's like, oh, here's this woman, and it's whether anyone
Yeah.
wants to fuck
We
her or
we
just
gave
because,
her all these special privileges. Why is she awful?
yeah,
Yeah.
it
Oh, Midna
it's
sighting. Yeah.
hello.
There's Midna. She's the Princess Kitty, so this is appropriate. But yeah, yeah, there really is a sort of self-reinforcing toxicity in
Mm-hmm,
nerd spaces regarding women because of this preconceived assumption that manipulative women are the norm.
mm-hmm.
But I mean, look at what society does to women like Carrie Fisher, who are willing to just be authentic and go, yeah, I have bipolar disorder and I had a drug problem and I am not skinny. And you calling me fat hurts my feeling, you know?
And I have to wonder how much of it is people who they were attracted to the femme fatale, not just the noir fatale, but the sexy black leather wearing girl who shows up in the sci-fi series, and it turns out she's working for the villain or she has her own motivations.
There is the step on me mommy types, but there are
Yes.
also the I want to save the princess types. And
Mm-hmm.
those are where the manipulations come in because all they have to go, help, 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 help. And guys fall at their feet and they know exactly what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And they can do it for themselves. They just, I mean, it's that whole thing about, I think it was a joke on, I don't remember what, but girl shows up in pink and super cute and gets all the different guys to write her code for her. But I don't know what I'm doing. And they'll just do it for her.
I didn't know she was going to say that line when I wore pink today,
Yeah,
guys.
sorry, different pink. Feet, foot. Not sorry. Yeah, awkward nerd. But yeah, but it is sort of we don't go, no, that's not okay for women to behave this way. We go, this is normal female behavior, therefore we must keep women out. Where are the women? Why don't I have a girlfriend? Right? Like that unfortunately is the nerd cycle. And it's not just nerd boys, it's nerd women as well. The flip side to this, just so men don't feel totally beat up here, the flip side is the woman that shows up and goes, naked ladies are disgusting and I'm uncomfortable and everything, and then is, you know, why
I
doesn't
mean,
why doesn't anybody like me?
yeah, I remember seeing a Tumblr post years ago from one of the women who worked on like the Fiona and Cake comic book, I think, who
Oof,
was like,
yeah.
I went into a comic book store to buy a copy of my own comic, and there was like these scantily clad cheesecake art
Yeah.
posters on the wall, and I'm just like, I like the cheesecake,
Okay.
so if you,
You look at the cover of women's magazines, it's
mm-hmm,
other women. The average woman is not bothered by. See, that's something that's treated as the norm in nerddom, and it's not.
mm-hmm,
And I personally think, because I've seen fandom evolve, there were women who benefited from low supply, high demand in terms of the attention they got from men.
yeah,
And then the cosplayers, the really pretty cosplayers, started showing up. And suddenly that's where the attention understand to be flocked.
yes.
And instead of going, well, that's okay because I'm not here to have boys drool on me anyway, they can have that. They felt threatened and it became competition. And that's
Which
when I
does
start.
kind of make me wonder, okay, were you actually there to have the boys drool over
Well,
you?
and that's, if you're not looking for that kind of attention, why do you care? And it's an
Mm-hmm.
internalized thing that if men don't sexually objectify you, they ignore you.
This is true.
Which, okay, if people are going all women are Shadowheart, surrounded by lots of Shadowhearts, like maybe people are just missing the non-Shadowhearts out there. The guys who are good people don't get noticed. The girls who are good people don't get noticed because the narcissists are really good at drawing attention to themselves. I know you put on this persona song. You are not who I'm talking about here.
I know.
Recovering from the pink comment. It's the red lipstick. I forgot about the pink. Um But I'm so used to looking at it, the two of a talking thumbnail. It's like I was talking to a tune. But you know, those types who are good at calling attention to themselves and are willing to go, yes, worship me. No, I won't step on you unless you pay my bills. They're the ones that get noticed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that if I'm not saying men stop doing this to women. I'm saying everyone, nerds, stop acting like the person you're talking to is your high school bully. They're not.
Yes.
They're another nerd. For God's sakes, you're not in high school anymore. And it's just a much better tactic. I mean, let's face it, the Carlacks of the world are the best people to actually have a relationship because she actually likes people and has social skills, and she has the least developed story of any character in Baldur's Gate 3, and I don't think that's an accident. I unfortunately think that they think that well-rounded people or stable people are boring,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not true.
No.
I have high hopes for James Gunn's Superman movie, The Hopeful Superman, because if he can tell a good story with that character, hopefully we'll get out of this edgelord phase.
That
Because
would be nice.
yeah, because media isn't here to soothe and excuse your bad behavior.
No.
Good media makes you feel like, okay, I feel understood, but they're
And
telling me some things I'm doing are not okay.
and yeah, even your comfort media should motivate you to be better.
I realize that there's no such thing as comfort media because I'm always the character that everybody is suspicious of in every single thing.
Pretty much.
Like I see myself, and we had a whole conversation on Twitch about why the fact that the INFP is the hero in a Star Wars style story, the INTJ is the villain who loses at the end and no one likes. And that's
I mean,
because
I'm an ISTJ, and let's look at the fact you and I are both Slytherin.
well, because of the TJ.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean I switch FJ, but that's just because I reject the question. But I mean there is the moral of the story is you do filter your experience through your preconceptions and expectations. So
Mm-hmm.
if you think all women are Shadowheart, that's what you're going to see in all women. If you
Yes.
think Shadowheart is not ideal traits and you're going to avoid those people and focus on, possibly the less ego stroking immediately portion of the feminine population, maybe you'll have a different experience. Similarly, if a guy has to be a Starian to make you go baby girl, you wonder why they treat you like shit and cheat on you. You know, you people do have choices. What is it? What is that thing again? The breakfast cereal, Alphahole?
Yeah.
Now I'm designing the mini golf course for that. Like it's like this like space opera type thing, but the final putt is like a giant butthole alien.
Although it's kind of funny because A Court of Thorns and Roses is written by Sarah J. Maas. And that series is one of my guilty pleasures. But she has another series called Crescent City, where one of the characters actually throws around the phrase alpha hole at all her male friends because they're all these big hulking alpha male fairies. She's half fae. And I'm like, Bryce, you better shut your mouth because you are the biggest alpha hole in this whole series.
Am I the only one that doesn't like colloquial modern slang in these types of stories? I know urban fantasy uses it. It kicks me out of it.
Yeah. And Crescent City is an urban fantasy series.
Okay.
But yet, no, that was one of my big complaints when I did my Fourth Wing commentary over on the Discord was the fact that they use phrases like as hell and
like
a bunch of others. I need to start. I'm going to be starting the book 2 commentary soon.
Sweet. Because I mean, in Baldur's Gate 3, to lean it back to Baldur's Gate 3 and to land the plane, because There's a time limit on Feedback Friday. Um, every time, because there's this thing with Will and Mizora, the Cambion that has his contract and all that stuff, the Warlock, and it's always Mizora, you arsehole. And I'm like, you had all this time and you couldn't come up with a better insult for this glamorous low cut gown demon than arsehole. Like, that's just everything that's wrong with that character in a nutshell. It's just
Like,
lazy.
and here's the thing, just go read Shakespeare. Not even that. Just go find a list of like Shakespearean insults and use something from there.
Yeah, like there's a lot. She's purple skinned and she has no pupils and she's a hell lawyer. That's the best you could come. And he says it more than once. It becomes like a tagline. And it's like, and I'm like, no, that works in Fable when you can choose to have people call you that. It doesn't work when he's supposed to be the dashing hero that was raised in nobility and lived in the shadow of his father and always does the right thing. It just doesn't work with the character.
Well, we've talked in private about how I think the English language is degrading and people are becoming less intelligent with the way they speak and using fewer words to convey what they actually think.
Save it for two women talking. We got to end Feedback Friday. Okay, so guys, songs, coffee. I'm not going to do my normal help support this channel. Please kick some bucks into coffee.com/song Erickson. Link in the description box. $90, guys. $90 to go. We can do this. We can do that. Song, do you want to close with wishing people a great weekend?
All right. Thank you for listening, guys. Have a great weekend, and we'll see y'all next week.